What's up, everybody? My name is Paul Dosky, and welcome to another episode of the Everything Horror Podcast. Joining us, one is absent right now, but he might be coming in sometime down the road or flying in, depending on how we want to abbreviate this. But anyway, none other with us is the lovely fiance.
Tessa Baker.
And then we have the cannibal kiddo that likes to eat everything because he's just hungry all the time, is Dustin Walker. Dustin, welcome back.
What's up, everybody?
And then finally, well, you already heard the Sleepy Hollow one, so I don't think I really need to go into the long tangent again. But just in case he is the ancient films and all knowledge that are facts that are fun, which is Richard Dick E. Johnson, or Dick for short. Welcome back, Richard.
Howdy, thanks for having me.
No problem.
I love everybody's nicknames. I kind of want to ask why you got the food nickname, but that makes me happy in so many ways.
He called himself the Cannibal Kiddo on Instagram and stuff, and he used to do film reviews. So, and that's what he used to go by as Cannibal Kiddo Reviews or something like that, or Cannibal Kid Reviews, something like that.
Oh, that's cool. So you're a movie guy too.
Yeah, Dustin had an interesting nickname for me at one point. I forget what he called me. It was I think it was on the Sleepaway Camp episode or something like that.
Yeah.
Dustin came up with this really good one. It was a really good one, and I'm like, I wish I could remember it, but it was really cool. I was like, wow, you just came up with that right off.
Yeah. Well, just in case he does come in, but if not, I'll just cut this out. But we should be seeing Tristan not make a return finally, and until he joins us, I guess we'll just have to start without him, unfortunately. Look who it is, everybody!
Tristan.
What's up, guys?
Hello.
How's it been, Tristan?
It's Ben.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. Good thing I did an introduction for you. So let's begin. So first up, real quick, everybody, we're going to be talking about the first 1993-94 movie of Hocus Pocus real quick. So we want the good and the bad, right? So let's just start here real quick. So I will go first before everybody starts killing each other about number two. But anyway, I love the first one. It's great. It's very charming. Had a great storyline. All the characters were amazing, and there was no plot holes in it. So I'm gonna hand it off to Tessa real quick. Tessa, what would you like to say real quick about the first Hocus Pocus?
What can I say really quick about Hocus Pocus? Oh shit! Telling me to talk about Hocus Pocus 1 real quick is just bad. Considering the fact that Hocus Pocus, the original, is actually one of my favorite movies. I have the Steelbook edition of this fucking movie. I love this movie. I love the Sanderson sisters. I have a whole bunch of freaking shit, coffee cups and things, and the Funko Pops and everything else. But anyways, I love the original movie. It was, like I said, it's one of my favorites. I love the Sanderson sisters. I love Max. I love Danny. Binks. Can't forget the cat.
And we can't forget the wonderful Billy.
Yeah, Billy Butcherson and Allison. It's just great, I love it. And and if I had to pick a favorite Sanderson sister out of all of it, it would probably be Sarah. Because, she's the one that's oh, it's a boy, let me play with him. She's just great. But they all have their individual charms and stuff. And Sarah's song is iconically haunting, and it's one tune that you never get out of your head once you hear it. Mary's I smell children, and I suggest we form a calming circle. It's fucking timeless. I love the movie. I knew eventually they were going to come out with a Hocus Pocus 2, and I'm like, there's no fucking way they're going to beat the original. There's no way. It's impossible. So yeah, there's my quick thoughts.
And you know what? We haven't heard from this bad boy in a hot minute. So, Tristan, what do you remember and would like to say about the first Hocus Pocus?
What do I not remember? I mean, I remember watching this as a kid. I mean, I was like, when I first watched this movie, like 4 years old, something like that. And, when it comes around this time of year, it's October, the first movie you think about is Hocus Pocus. That's the first movie that comes to mind. So it's a cult classic. I mean, everything about it was spot on to a T. There's nothing I wouldn't change about it. But, I went back and rewatched it, and I don't think there was nothing wrong. It had a great story, had great actors. I love it.
All right. Justin, what would you like to say? And then we'll hand it off to Richard.
Yeah, so the first Hocus Pocus movie, I'm pretty sure I went and seen this in theaters, but I can't remember, but definitely grew up watching on Disney Channel. Like everybody else, I'm pretty sure. Watched it every year. What's his name? Omri Katz, the guy who plays Max on there. Like, when I was a kid, he was one of the top 3 coolest people I could think of. Erie, Indiana, Dinosaur City, Hocus Pocus. So yeah, I mean, when people talk about Halloween movies, I think this embodies it the best out of any movie I can think of. Just the atmosphere, everything is fucking Halloween in this movie. The decorations, the color from the trees, everything. I don't know, everything just looks great in this movie. So that's the one thing I always loved about this movie is the look of it.
I also want to add one more thing before Richard chimes in. Richard, if we ever come over and I watch the original with you, I will legitly, and Paul can vouch for this, I will sit there and I will quote the entire fucking movie. I know this movie so well. Like, I can quote it word for fucking word. Like,
I can do that with 2 films. I can do it with Clue, and I can do it with The Little Mermaid, so I get it.
yeah, I can quote Hocus Pocus, and I love my serial killer documentaries and shit. So, yeah.
So I also grew up with it on the Disney Channel. I had just gotten the Disney Channel. I had just gotten television. It was just I didn't have TV until I was 15 in 1994, and when I had access to it, that's one of the first things I remember the Disney Channel premiering it, and I loved the fairy tale feel that it had. At the same point, it had just enough spooky. Now, I wasn't raised with spooky movies. I wasn't raised with television, and I wasn't raised with holidays. So not having that background, I did have a very limited amount of experience with film. So when I say it was spooky to me at that point in my life, it was actually a little bit darker than I would normally have watched. And it was something that got me to just watch more and more and more spooky. So in fairness, it kind of opened up that door for me because just a few years later, I was in love with American Psycho. Don't ask me how we went from one to another, but that's what happened. And I loved Erie, Indiana, too, so I love that comment. I was very surprised with that. Hadn't thought about that in a while. Steelbooks, I have both Steelbooks and the special edition from Target, and all kinds of doodads from the film. I have the original novelization because I was that guy. I was obsessed. Amok, amok, amok is probably one of my favorite lines, and I love the line about I love children and want to eating them on toast. I'm like the movie's a classic. I have watched it every Halloween before it was cool. I'm still angry that they debuted it in theaters in the middle of the summer because I don't understand that. I mean, I know they didn't want to go up against Nightmare Before Christmas, but that's just unreasonable. Very fond memories of this film.
Hey, Richard, I got another line for you.
Yeah.
Oh, look, another glorious morning. It makes me sick.
Yeah, exactly. And so I'm trying to think, where should we take off with this? Like, why do we love the original so much? I think it's just because it's just the way everything was written. And just before we really get into the first one for a little bit, let's just remind the listeners of what the Hocus Pocus is. It's about a curious youngster moved to Salem where he struggled to fit in before awakening a trio of diabolical witches that were executed in the 17th century. So there we go. There's a
Youngster?
little plot.
Youngster? He's a teenager, for fuck's sake.
Yeah,
He's a
that's what it
teenage
says.
boy. A
That's
very
what it says.
curious teenage boy. Mr.
Should say a
Daredevil.
virgin lit the
Let's
candle.
play with fire. Yeah.
That's Tristan, right?
Yeah. Listen, we're not going to talk about my past here, buddy. We're talking about a movie here.
Leave the inflatables in the past.
Damn it, Tristan, he knows your secrets.
Tristan, we need to hide them better. Tessa, real quick, what would you like to talk about the Hocus Pocus?
What do you mean, like... There's nothing bad about the original Hocus Pocus. Like, there's literally nothing bad I could say about it. I love the film. It was just brilliant. It was brilliant. It was well done. Character design was spot on. Environment was spot on. I loved the fucking, the sets. The Sanderson sister house, the woods, and the entire ambiance. How they did Salem, like modern day Salem, with the Sanderson sisters involved, and everything else. And Amara is apparently putting in her 2 cents as well.
Which she's not happy about what we're going to be talking next, I don't think. So, yeah. So I guess, besides the fact that this is everybody's favorite film really for Hocus Pocus, I guess if nobody has anything else that's nice to say right now, I guess we will dive into the bombshell. Did I say that out loud? I guess so. So real quick, does anybody have anything else to say about the first Hocus Pocus?
I mean,
No.
What was that, Tristan?
I mean, everything has its flaws, Like, if you sit there and rewatch it over and over again, you're of course going to enjoy it. But then when you watch it over and over again, you're going to try to find those things that are flawless, like the mistakes, the loopholes, the stuff
That's
that you
Hocus
don't see.
Pocus 2.
Yeah, that is number 2 in a nutshell.
That's Hocus Pocus 2 in a nutshell. And oh god, I'm itching to talk about that.
I will say that number 1 had enough campiness and enough adult humor to make it still rewatchable no matter what age you are. And I'm not sure that the second one will hold up that well. And I love the fact that Penny and Gary Marshall both made an appearance. And I kind of wanted to mention that real quick, especially because that lays the ground on another gripe I have about the second.
Yeah.
And one thing I wanted to praise about the first Hocus Pocus is that the director, Mick Garris, was actually like a horror movie director. So this movie works as almost like a children's horror movie, like a gateway anyway. Whereas the second one, which we'll get into it, the lady that made it, I can't even think of her name, but I looked it up, and she's actually made a couple movies that I like. Maybe Guilty Pleasures, 27 Dresses, Dumpling, a handful of movies. But compare her movies to Mick Garris' movie. We got somebody that made horror movies that made the original Hocus Pocus, and the person that made Hocus Pocus 2 is more of rom-coms.
They didn't use Kenny Ortega again, which I don't understand because he's alive and well and has done projects for Disney.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I can at least say there is 3 writers for both Hocus Pocus films. So it's not like there wasn't many writers, but in this case, maybe there was a little bit too much writers for the second.
Too many cooks in the kitchen.
Yeah, there you go. That's a good way of looking at it. So let us begin with this bombshell, which is Hocus Pocus 2. So 2 young women accidentally bring back the Sanderson sisters to modern-day Salem and must figure out how to stop the child-hungry witches from wreaking havoc on the world. And there we go. That's it. And I can already hear Tessa's enthusiastic sigh right there.
Figure,
So
I'm buying the steelbook of this one.
So real quick, so I know Justin is the first one that reached out to me about this as well. So Justin, we'll start off with you. What did you want to say about Hocus Pocus 2?
I don't hate this movie. I actually like this movie. I don't think it's as good as the original, anywhere close. It's a completely different feel to it. My biggest problem with the movie is the atmosphere doesn't feel like the first one. This movie, the first one felt like a town that I wanted to live in, that I could walk around, felt like a living, breathing town. Whereas this one, it feels like sets. Everybody that isn't a main character is just there for gags. It doesn't feel like a real place.
Hey, Dustin, can I ask you a quick question before you continue that? Just not to interrupt your
Oh, it's all good.
How many times have you seen it, the new one?
3 times.
Okay, so same as me. Thank you. No, I just was curious. No, that'll come up later, but yes, please continue.
Yeah, but there's no memorable characters. I can't tell you the new cast. I can't tell you anything about them other than what they're wearing, and I probably couldn't even tell you that. There's nothing special about them. Which I'll tell the store owner. I mean, I thought he was all right. He doesn't bother me.
Oh, you mean the backstabber?
Yeah, I mean, he didn't bother me too much. But that would be my biggest problem with this movie is like the first one felt like someone trying to make a film, and this one just felt like Candy Aisle and Walgreens.
Well, they did go into Walgreens. Was that a fun?
You know, the last time I saw this much promotion, I think was in the Power Ranger movie and Krispy Kremes. God, I wanted Krispy Kremes, and we don't even have them in Vermont.
What the hell?
New York has them.
We need to riot. We need
New
to
York
riot.
City.
Tristan, real quick. So you were the next one that kind of reached down with just like, dude, I want to talk Hocus Pocus 2. So what do you want to say about Hocus Pocus 2?
In the words of my ancestors, let's talk about this, mate. All right. It got me all confuzzled, you know. So when you go from the first one, it's great, you know. It's got a great story and everything. But when you go into this one, right off the bat, it felt like a musical. Kind of disappointing. But I was enjoying the hot chick dancing around, you know, kind of me.
That Midler was pretty hot.
But it felt like Disney was trying to do another superhero movie.
Okay, yeah, I can see that.
I mean, think about it. I mean, they're doing Marvel right now, and it's becoming a great hit. Now they make a story about this teenager that gets powers now. Like, what are we watching here? Are we watching a Hocus Pocus movie or a superhero movie? What are we watching? It was confusing.
Yeah. I'll give you that. So Richard, let's get your intake real quick, and I only know Tessa's already. So
My fears I'm going to take away from Tessa because I feel like Tessa's on the same board with me. So there's a lot I disliked about this movie, and I am somebody who I watch a movie for a plot line. And I go in for story. So story is the biggest criteria I can make. I can ignore poor sets, say, you know, like Halloween Town, which this kind of was.
What do you mean? We don't talk about that movie here.
I mean, it has its place, I suppose. You know, whatever. It's just not my classic. My classic was Hocus Pocus, and I prefer them not to harm it. My problems began almost immediately out of the bat when this random woman pops up into the woods and hands these girls that are the Sanderson sisters a book that was supposed to be given to them by the devil. That was the first thing that tweaked me. I will say that seeing the Sanderson sisters as children, and this is my own personal assumption, was something that I had assumed that when they were sucking the lives out of the young lady in Salem, Emily, that she was not there first. And if you look at the years, they would not have needed to make themselves younger. I guess in my mind, felt that it was centuries of, and it just caught up to them in Salem, of sucking lives out of children. So that kind of went away when you suddenly see them as kids, and then they started to link them to real life people from Salem, which I thought was a little tacky, maybe, but okay. The witches popping back and suddenly bursting into song with no question as to why they're there, how they got the lit the candle. I'm so sorry, Tessa. I feel like I'm stealing this from you, but yeah. Um, them not to suddenly have a concern when the first thing they did when they popped into the house last time was, who lit the candle? What year is it? Why are we here? All those questions are now gone. It suddenly jumped into a song. And that's okay. Fine. You wanted to make money off the music. Sure. It's not a musical, which was clearly not. The first one wasn't a musical. I felt the first one incorporated music well the way they had done it. My next week was Walgreens. Walgreens apparently paid for this movie, which I don't understand because Disney now owns everything. There were funny moments in Walgreens. Don't get me wrong. Mary, I understood her switching the smile, and I get why personally she did it. But on the other hand, it wasn't well explained. You had to see the slap, and you had to be explained to the slap to go see it and be like, oh, that's kind of cool. To the fact that she looked like she had a stroke throughout the film kept bugging me, especially when the technology, as you mentioned the Avengers earlier, I'm going to go into the Star Wars realm with yep, that's the movie, Rogue One. And at the end where you see Carrie Fisher turn around and she's perfect. Like she's the way she was in the 70s. And I know in that theater, everyone gasped, including myself, because no one expected that to exist. That possibility existed, and you would assume that the witches who had just sucked some lives out and became young again would freeze in time and death wouldn't affect them and make them old, that they would come back looking much younger. Okay, so fine. They didn't have budget. Whatever, we can excuse this. My next issue is the storekeeper. The storekeeper had this sound story about how he saw the witches back in 1993, and he followed them. So there's only 3 scenes that they use those brooms in. And one is when they're leaving the house to go look for Max. And then the next is kind of when Sarah is off singing all the children into a trance. So which was it? Are you at the beginning and you're following them underneath, through the sewers of Salem? Or did you, and then it not only stops where she was singing, but then moves them over to the graveyard after that whole scene has transpired without any thought of where these characters came from or went. That's a major plot hole, especially when you're connecting it to the second one with such a solid whatever. The new song was fine. I didn't mind even the trans women dressed up. Whatever. I thought it was a cute addition. But the song and the spell was pointless. They chased the mayor all through town to steal his apple. And that is a very weak plot point, and that mayor sucked. He's a terrible actor. It was like having Don Knotts in an actual decent movie, and I don't understand it. That doesn't even go into talking about the girls, the new witches, as they tried to incorporate Wiccan into something that was clearly a fairy tale that was made like Hansel and Gretel, and they tried to legitimize it, and all of a sudden these girls, they have no personality. We'll start with that. Second, I don't know if they're trying to emulate the Sandersons because they were supposedly good, but then they were emulating them at the end, so that definitely blurs lines. The book deciding that it was suddenly going to pick a person is really random and very strange. I feel like the book that is supposedly come from the devil and not some weird woman in the wood would be on the devil side of things and just be really out for its own needs. And then we finally get into the end scenes where they were singing once again, which is super strange. So there's so much wrong with this movie that upset me into massive levels that nobody really sees. And I will say, I saw it 3 times. The first time I gave it a 7, and that was nostalgic. I realized that after the second time when I lowered my number to a 6. And then when I saw it the third time, and I saw all 3 in one day, that third time it dropped to a 5. And I'm like, oh my God, this is actually truly shit. And I didn't understand it. So I know that Dustin saw it 3 times, so I'm surprised you didn't have more objections to it. I don't know how long ago it was that you saw number 1, or if continuity is important to you in a film, because it may not be. I did feel that the quality of the sets were almost on par with the original for what they had. I think they tried to replicate it the best that they sort of could, and they still used the Disney backlot, which, of course, after you've seen it in Polly and Polly Coming Home, not to mention 30 other films that they've done, it's kind of easy to spot, and it just seemed very weak for something that's 30 years planned after the women were so, like, Bette Midler assured us it was going to be a good plot, to the point where that's why I was confident it was going to be a good movie when I went in to see it, because the actresses themselves were talking about how it was, and they had waited for the right plot. So I don't understand, and I feel like this is a George Lucas instance where on the Force did George hurt you first? This feels very personal. It feels like a personal attack to me. Okay, Tessa, whatever I didn't say, I'm sorry, and if I repeated you, I apologize.
It's okay. All right, gentlemen, buckle up.
I was kind of concerned about you. You look like you were having an epileptic
I feel like she
seizure.
agreed. Did you agree with me? I'm assuming you did.
Yes, quite a few points I agreed, but buckle up. Okay, so first off, right out the fucking gate, the way that the Sanderson sisters were brought back, the black flame candle looked like a melted ball or melted pillar of bullshit. It didn't even look like the original
digital
black
rendering.
flame It didn't even look like the original black flame candle from the first movie. So that pissed me off right there. I'm like, at least if you're gonna bring them back with the black flame candle, make it look like the goddamn black flame candle from the first one. You know, you see them all over the fucking shop. Why couldn't you use that? No, of course not. Okay, so the origin bit with the Sanderson sisters, okay, fine. Except, like Richard said, the witch in the woods appears with the book. In the original, it was stated that the book was given to Winifred by the devil. That woman does not look like the devil. Another thing about the witch in the woods, did anybody notice her dress? The symbology on her dress, the colors of her dress, it matches Danny's costume from the first one. Only made it more of like a witch gown. Okay. So the unnecessary musical number when they're summoned out of fucking nowhere is stupid. So pointless. I was like, right off the bat, if you could have been Paul and he was sitting right next to me when we were watching this, I'm like, what the okay, alright. So, they're summoned back by 2 girls who are practicing witchcraft. Okay. In the woods, which is supposed to be a power spot for all witches. The girl's 16th birthday is approaching, or is her 16th birthday. So she's coming into her power as a witch. Okay. Get that part.
Thank you, Sabrina.
But, gentlemen, they completely toned Sarah down so much. She was my favorite witch. They took away her sex appeal. They left the stupidity factor, the dumbass factor, but they took away all the stuff that made her sexy and everything. And I'm like, what? They completely butchered my favorite witch. Like, they completely destroyed her character. And I'm like, what the fuck? I was like all excited about the fact that the 3 of them were, the 3 original Sanderson sisters were coming back to begin with. I was happy about that. I was fucking ecstatic about that part. But when it got down to it and it revealed them, I was like, oh no. No. Walgreens. So, they go into Walgreens to look for potions that make them younger. And Mary's eating a face mask. That's, oh, it's a child face. Look at this. Okay. I see the humor in that. I see the humor in them spraying each other with like sprays and stuff like that, and trying to eat lotions and things like that. They don't know any better. They'll believe anything. So they still have that. What's the word I'm looking for, Richard? Is it ignorant?
Stupidity.
That's not quite the word, but it'll work. What?
Yeah.
Naivety. Naivety.
Yeah.
That's what we're looking for.
Naivety. Okay. I like the fact how they still used, the good witches still use salt to protect themselves with, even though they made it come in about 4 or 5 different fucking forms.
Did you notice that salt was way different than the first movie, though? And the
Yes,
powers
because
that the salt had?
Yes, because it wasn't in the traditional salt container that we're all used to seeing. Which...
No, I mean, before they could hover over the salt in the graveyard, but they could go over it, they just couldn't go on it. And this one, they got stuck inside, and that really bugged me, too.
Yes. Because it's supposed
you're talking about the part in the garage, right?
I am.
Yes.
Okay.
Because it's supposed to repel them. That's the point of the salt. It's supposed to repel black magic. It's not supposed to contain them, per se. It's supposed to repel them. That was the original idea in the first Hocus Pocus. Why they chose to use it as a containment field, even though, coming from me, because I've been a practicing witch for well over 16, 18 years, there are things that people would use as containment for dark energies, negative energies, blah, blah, blah. Anyways, I'm going to agree with Richard again and say that it did not feel like Salem. It did not give off that atmosphere in the first film. It literally felt like a musical set. Waiting for somebody to go into a fucking flash mob or some bullshit. Which basically is what they did in the movie at one point. With the fucking spell, they turned it into a flash mob. And like Richard said, they pretty much... their idea of hunting down the mayor for the Sanderson sisters is to do a flash mob dance around him and steal his fucking apple. They didn't do anything to him. They took his fucking apple and then they went on their merry way. Okay, that spell worked real fucking great. Brilliant.
And that goes back to like what Tristan was saying. This felt like a musical. So
Yeah.
Well, it still kept that musical element that the first one had, because I think that's why they did it. They replicated the song. Doing it once is fine. It's the multiples.
Yeah, and I do want to say I think they changed a couple lines too, just because they wanted to make it more modern as well.
Well, if we go back to what Richard said, you remember that scene that the storekeeper went to the like graveyard, and they showed the scene where he was younger, and he watched her disappear and everything. Everything was flat there. Did you guys notice that?
Yes.
It was all flat,
There's
but in the
no
first movie, it's all
place for
mountains.
anybody.
It's all like rough terrain.
Okay, so going on. There was positive notes. I did have some positive notes. It wasn't complete shit. I was not happy about the second one. I like the origins about the Sanderson sisters when they were younger. I like that. I did not like how the book was given to them when they were kids. Did not. You want to make me happy? Have the devil give Winnie the fucking book. I wanted to see that. I love the fact that they brought back Billy Butcherson. I was very fucking happy to see him. I was like, thank you. Thank you. They even kept him to his original design from the first one. They did not fucking tweak him, which I was happy about. I would have loved to have heard him call Winifred the trollop. bucktooth, firefly from hell. I would have loved to have heard that again, because everybody fucking loved that part. But it was kind of funny how Billy Butcherson was talking about how, when the shopkeeper in this film was talking about Billy Butcherson's love life with Winifred Sanderson versus Sarah Sanderson, he only kissed Winifred Sanderson once. We all know that he was down and dirty with Sarah more than anything, so he may as well have been Sarah's lover, but they really wanted to push the whole he was Winifred's lover factor.
So I have an opinion.
Really...
I have an opinion. So what did everybody think about the last scene, the cut scene at the end? What did everybody think about that?
You mean with the cat, like at the end,
like the candle?
Yeah, and the candle.
We can't forget that, because now they set it up for another one. Now I don't even think it's even that good to even get a third one.
I don't know
what they could possibly.
Yeah, I don't know.
Because what are they going to do next? What are they going to do next? Are they going to do this whole big battle where they bring back the Sanderson sisters to help them defeat the person that gave them the book? Is that what they're going to go with this? Because that's what it kind of seemed like at the end of that, when the crow came out of nowhere, the raven.
All right.
I feel they're going to feature those stupid girls.
They probably are, but you want to know what they should have done? Richard's going to agree with me on this.
Yep.
He's already in agreement because he knows what I'm going to say. There is a book with Part 1 and Hocus Pocus 2 that is completely fucking different from what we watched on the screen. The idea, what the book does, is Hocus Pocus 2 in the book talks about Max and Allison and their daughter Poppy. And Poppy, their daughter, is supposed to be the one that's responsible for bringing the Sanderson sisters back. That's what they should have fucking gave us.
Yeah.
They should have brought back Max and Allison, their daughter, the Sanderson sisters, and given us that story. They give us these girls, we don't even know where the fuck they came from. How the hell did they even play into all this? I mean, other than their witches coming into their power, which personally, I would have rather have seen Max and Allison's daughter be a witch coming into her power. At least then the fucking story would have made sense, because you would have had a continuation from the first one, because Max and Allison, when they're going out the gates at the end of the fucking movie, Allison says something to the effect of, "Get used to being with me," or "I hope you don't get sick of me," or something to that effect. And Max says something like, "Oh, you're going to be stuck with me for a lot of years." And Max says, "I can't wait." So I would have loved to have seen it continue off of the original.
I think it would have given them more of an excuse, instead of giving them a backstory, which I didn't feel was needed, to continue on their story of vengeance and why they would single them out over all the other children in Salem. Because at this point, the spell, they needed to be young to escape the magic in the first one. This one, they had no purpose or reasoning other than the candle unlights and then they're gone. So that urgency was gone. There was no urgency. And it was super weird. Sorry.
It's okay. Another thing, the fact that when they were doing the origin story with the Sanderson sisters at the beginning of the movie, and when he was going through the book, and she got to the Maxima Magico spell, that's pretty much the entire fucking thing, the end game for the fucking second movie, is Winifred using that fucking spell. Is Winifred using that spell, the one spell that witch made her promise to never use, and that she promised Book that she would never use, she used. And it came with the most expensive price to Winifred. The one thing that she never wanted to lose, she sacrificed blindly
Did you also notice that every spell, all the girls constantly did the same spell in the background? Like that's not a spell's change. You don't. It worked in the first one because there was only 2 spells and they were different. This one they used it for all of them and then continued. Also, did you notice the alterations to the book? The book is supposed to have fingers on the spine, and the fingers are gone, and it was computer generated instead of being real. And that was a very strange choice too. I mean, if we really want to get nitpicky, because there is a lot of little stuff like that, drove me freaking crazy.
I will just cut in real quick and just say this for people wondering. So the book that Tessa mentioned, the Hocus Pocus, the sequel book, that came out around July of 2018, while Hocus Pocus 2 came out September 30th of 2022.
Proving that Disney's just doing it to make money. At this point, they'll get a greenlit because it's the most #1 watched Disney movie on Disney Plus since it premiered, because it has that kind of following. But
Now,
will people be stupid enough to go to a third? I don't know.
But they played it too safe though.
so
They really they sucked like a good chunk of the fun right out of it just by fucking just toning down Sarah's character.
Her line, "It's a boy, let me play with him," she says it all over the first one, and all of a sudden she's a different person.
Yeah, it's like it's not even her anymore. I
think the problem with Sarah is that in the original movie, she's boy crazy. That's the joke. She's boy crazy, and you can't have those types of characters these days. They don't have those types of characters these days.
That is not our problem.
No, I agree.
They should have gone against the crowd.
I feel like my biggest problem with this movie is like the people that made this movie missed the point of the original movie. The original movie had singing in it, but that's how they cast spells. And this movie is a straight up musical. It has musical numbers. They aren't casting spells when they first come back.
Okay, so if Disney's so concerned about toning down Sarah and not making her sexy and worrying about offending somebody, what about the people that are offended about the Sanderson sisters dressed in drag?
Right?
Can we just point that out? I have no problem with drag queens. I love drag queens. I'm stating this for the record. I think they're phenomenal fucking people. But if Disney's going to get hypocritical about toning down sexiness and stuff and worrying about offending somebody, they should look at all angles of what they're putting on the screen.
I mean, you are right. That's exactly why they removed it, was because of PC people. But on the other hand, you literally had centuries where she wasn't, like she was dead and she came back and was boy crazy. It's not going to change in 30 years. It's not, you know what I mean? She's still been dead. And that, I think that's the big thing, is like, oh, well, you're looking at it because 30 years have passed for us. For them, it's supposed to be instantaneous and follow in suit. And you can tell that the culture has changed drastically to the point where maybe they shouldn't have made the sequel if they didn't think that they could actually do it.
Sarah shouldn't have lost her urge to be boy crazy.
No.
That was a huge part of what made her her.
And I will say it was very eye-opening when she was straddling that broom in one scene, because even I was like, wow, you're afraid to put in any adult humor. There was two times Virgin was mentioned and no adult humor at all. And the first one was filled with it. And then you see that and you're like, whoa, you're afraid of that, but you're not afraid of this. It was very, it felt like a Disney Channel movie, and it felt like that they actually took all these years of memes, put all the memes together to hit them, and didn't bother watching the first one. At least to me.
What did you guys think of their upgrade broom selection for this one versus the first one?
I found the room was funny.
It was funny. I will give it that. I will give it that. That was
the only part I liked.
The freaking vacuum cleaner pairing on Mary's feet, the freaking Swiffer mop with fucking Sarah, the freaking regular broom for Winnie. Winnie always gets like a regular looking broom, but Mary and Sarah always get stuck with the weird shit, the vacuum cleaner or the mop. You know?
I mean, at the end of the day, they tried. But so now that you guys have actually, because it doesn't, I don't think either of you took it as personally as Tessa and I took it. How do you? Has this altered your opinions at all? Do you see the points when you actually think about what you watched? Maybe this is more pointed at Dante because he said that he sort of liked it. I was just
Dustin.
curious, like,
Yeah.
Dustin. Oh, I just,
Yeah.
I'm virtue. Sorry, dude. I'm very bad with names. In fairness,
all
I
good.
apologize.
Tristan, you can go first.
I mean, of course. I mean, I already knew right when I first started watching it was going to be crap. All right, nothing beats the first one. That was already my intentions when I first started watching it. But, I had some points where I liked it. I laughed like hell when I saw them start dancing and laughing. I'm like, what the hell am I watching? But there were some points that made sense and then some that didn't. But, I'm also logical. So, like, when they say the devil, of course, they might know the woman and call her the devil. She might have made an appearance way back when,
Except she was looking for the devil. And this brings back up the point about Gary Marshall because he was dressed as the devil and she thought it was her master. So
And she had the
immediately
potion in
placed
her
it.
hand. She had the life-stealing potion in her hand. The exact
So
thing.
you get the impression, and maybe it wasn't said, that she saw the devil in the form that we would recognize him in.
And yes, I'm going to agree with Richard on another thing. The mayor was a fucking idiot.
Oh, yeah, I thought he was
Absolute
garbage.
idiot.
I didn't like his acting at all.
He was obsessed with the caramel apple.
It was like Ernest. It was like you put Ernest in this movie. What did you do?
Well, I didn't dislike that guy because I can't think of his name right now, but he's always the same character in everything he's in. So
Oh yeah, he's just not good.
he's just always the same character, and I think he does that character fine. So, but yeah, talking about Hocus Pocus 2, does it change my opinion? All right, so I don't think this is a good movie. I think it's a fine movie. I think it's the movie that they wanted to make. My thing is,
the movie that we deserved.
Well, it's not the movie that the fans deserved, the original. But my thing is, I can, as long as there's good characters, I can get by on a bad script, bad dialogue, slow pacing. I can get by on all that as long as there's good characters, and I can watch a movie of the Sanderson sisters drinking coffee. I'd be fine with it. They were.
So you
different.
like Godfather 3?
I do like Godfather 3. I don't think it's nearly as good as 1 or 2, but I think it's fine.
You are genuinely the first person I've met that have ever said that, but I'm happy to hear it.
His daughter sucks in Godfather 3. I can't even think of her name. Ford Coppola.
Sophia
Ford Coppola. Yeah.
You're welcome.
That was supposed to be Winona Ryder. That's one thing that does piss me off. It's supposed to be Winona Ryder. But yeah. So this movie gets by just because I like the sisters. I think they're fine. I think they were like depowered, however you want to put it, in this movie. But I think it's just because they're all older. Sarah Jessica Parker can't keep up that same energy that she could in the first movie. She's always doing something. She's always dancing, bouncing around. I don't think she can do it anymore. And as far as like the ending, I feel like this was a goodbye. I don't think that movie, they weren't expecting it to be as popular as it was over the years. And Bette Midler, and this is like their way of saying goodbye to those characters, getting them proper send-off. Would I have preferred a better movie? Yeah, I would have preferred to see Thora Birch come back and Omri Katz and the chick that played Allison. I'd love to see all of them come back. I would love to see the 2 bullies come back. Ice and I can't even think of the blonde dude's name. But yeah, I mean, I don't like the new characters. I think the shopkeeper was okay. The mayor, like I said, he plays the same character in everything he's in, and I think he does fine with that character. He had a couple funny lines. The musical aspects I don't like. Is it something I'll rewatch? Never. I watched it once with my daughter. I watched it once by myself, and I watched it once for this review.
Interesting.
I've only watched it once.
Well, it's interesting because I feel like you're both giving it a good review and a bad review, and that you can't figure out which section you're on, and you're trying to appease both sides.
Like I said, I don't think this is a bad movie, but I don't think it's a good movie.
On a scale of 1 to 10, where would you rate it?
I would probably give it like a 5 or a 6. One thing about me, though, is I like terrible movies.
Yes, you do.
I mean, yes, but there's something to be said about your Birdemic or your Velocipaster, or those. Those are really terrible movies. And
I don't like those movies. But
oh, they're super funny. Really? Oh,
I like movies with characters that, like I said, I could watch them sit around and drink coffee, as long as it's good characters and defined characters that I can describe to anybody. I mean, I can describe Max's character or Danny's character, Allison's character. I can describe all these people. I can't tell you anything about the new characters.
Fair. They're not memorable. Gotcha.
But like I said before, I felt like I was watching another superhero movie. Really. Like if I wanted to watch somebody at 16 years old get their powers, I would have watched an episode of Charmed. That's what it felt like to me.
Sabrina,
Yeah.
which is closer.
It felt like I haven't.
No offense.
I haven't personally.
You get what I'm saying, though.
Yet, but it kind of looks like a Charmed reboot, clashing with the Sanderson sisters.
I only watched one episode of that Charm reboot, and I was not sold.
I didn't see the reboot.
I refuse. I won't do it. I won't do it.
I like Charmed, though.
I like the original
original
Charmed. I love the original Charmed. I will watch the original Charmed, but I'll rewatch the original Charmed till the end of time, but I will not go near the fucking reboot.
Now, I will say I enjoyed both versions of Sabrina. I've liked them equally, and I was surprised about
that. Honey. Miss Amara.
But I also collect television, so like I have 20,000 physical DVDs, so it's odd. Yeah. I'm a big movie guy.
Just in case nobody have said it yet, I'm just want to throw it out there too. I'm wondering if they made this movie because of the copyright for Hocus Pocus. I almost wonder if it was needing to be renewed, and the only way to kind of keep it was to make another film. That's my import.
I think the book would have done that with the re-release if that was the case. The book from 2018.
The only thing that I noticed about the 3 new girls in this movie is that they're all wearing the same matching fucking pendant.
They're different ethnicity too.
Yes,
they had to check off that.
Yeah, but they're all wearing the same exact pendant around their necks. The circular one. It's the same pendant. Other than that, there's not anything memorable about them. I didn't connect to them. I didn't relate to them in any way.
It was like watching The Craft too.
Yeah, not like I did with like Danny, Max, and Allison.
They all should have just choked on the blood of the Virgin.
Choke on it.
So, with that being said, my rating for this is probably, for the sake of bringing back the original women who played the Sanderson sisters and Billy Butcherson, I'll give it like a 3.5 or 4 out of 10, just for that. If they brought back anybody else to try to do any of that, like especially with the Sanderson sisters, if they had somebody completely different try to play the Sanderson sisters, I wouldn't have even gone near this movie.
So I when I do my rating systems, I rate it on a lot of different things. I rate it on storyline, acting, the cinematography, like I tend to watch the Oscars, so I tend to go through their checklist. Rewatch value is huge to me. Every time I watched it, the number went down, and upon rewatching, I like even re-talking about it as much as I have. I'm going to say that this movie now currently comes in at probably between a 4 and a 4.5, and the only reason why it gets that pass is because the original women were involved. To the point where I don't know how many of you are aware of Bette Midler has a project in New York City that she does funding for upgrading parks and stuff, and they did a Sanderson Sisters in Search of special a year and a half ago, and like I even went so far as to buy the stream for that so that I could get a copy of it because I thought it was such a cool tie-in factor. And honestly, the quality of that, despite being low, was still, I felt, better than this. And I find that kind of amusing. So all in all, when you take in everything from the writing, the directing, the actors, the acting, the believability, and most of all the rewatch value, I would still say it gets definitely between a 4 and 4.5.
I agree with that.
Yeah, 4.
I mean,
I would say a 4.
honestly, I would still
for
rank it probably
the
a 6.
original and the Billy, yeah. And I'm sorry, Dustin, what?
Now go ahead, Paul. What were you
I
saying?
was going to say I would give it a 4 just because 1 star for each original member, and that was only 4 of them.
Okay. But yeah, I mean, I would probably give it a 6, honestly. I mean,
You were happier with it than us, so
the
I
sisters are still fine. I think the movie looks fine. It doesn't look super cheap. It doesn't have the same atmosphere as the original movie. The dialogue's forgettable. The songs are fine. I mean, it's not super funny, but I laughed a couple times in it. So I wouldn't rank it like Velocipaster. I would probably give like a 3.5 to or something like that. So I think this is a much better movie.
It's so bad. It's so bad. It's actually good. Like it's terrible. It's absolutely terrible. But we actually have bad movie nights, so I have to rate them on a different rating system. And showability is so high on those movies. I mean, Birdemic is absolutely one of the worst things I've ever seen, and that still rates higher than Hocus Pocus 2.
Well, I think on that note, does anybody else have any final thoughts before we wrap things up? No? Okay.
Please don't do number 3. Please reevaluate yourselves. I know you're going to because of all the money you made, and that's all that Disney cares about. Look at their remakes alone. But please don't do it and hurt us further.
Yeah, please just gracefully bow out and let the Sanderson sisters rest.
Yeah.
I will say if they do decide to do a 3, cross it over with Halloween Town because I love that movie, and I think this is on the same level.
So, in fairness, I do like Halloween Town, but I put it in a different category.
But this feels like that same category as Hocus Pocus 2. So
and that is the very problem, sir, we have with this film. There was no effort.
Well, you know what's funny is the original Hocus Pocus we all discovered on Disney Channel, a lot of us anyway, but it didn't feel like a Disney Channel movie. But this one feels like a Disney Channel movie.
Well, this is worse because the Disney Channel movies, I don't know. I'm a big Disney fan, so I have every film that they have made theatrically on DVD, and I have 97% of everything the company's made as a whole. But the Disney Channel movies, if you look at them from 94, 95, 96, they had high production values. And in 2000, they switched over to, it was like Just the Laugh Productions, and they were whipping out their Sweet Life and Hannah Montana and Phil of the Future, and all of those were all made by that same company, and they used basically what I would refer to as the look of a soap set. They cheapened the sets, did less camera angles. They really cheapened it to make a mass amount of stuff to get more for their buck and get returns from people watching on TV. But this is also when the Disney Channel lost all their money because Disney Channel went from being a pay-for service to a free service. And so they invited in commercials and stuff, which cheapened all the productions. And it very much does feel like the early 2000s Disney Channel original movies, which is sad because before then, the Disney Channel movies were better than the stuff on TV. So that's just my thought process from it and from going through it. But I did kind of focus on that a lot. And obviously my tastes have gone into the entire realm of movies. It's not just Disney anymore. So I get influenced by a lot of other things. That's just the standouts.
The biggest insult that Billy got to deliver in this film was calling Winifred a withering hag.
No adult
That
humor.
was the most that Billy got to say to Winifred, was just calling her a withering hag.
All right. Well, I guess on that note, I think that just wraps up everything. And as Richard put it, do not watch it. And please, for the love of the Jesus of the film, God, do not make God.
Or you have one guy here who likes it. So if you're not a
or you can listen to Dustin and you can check it out for the campy humor. I'm not.
Or you can just have fun and watch the movie
with alcohol, drinking weed.
A lot of
turn it into a drinking game.
Every time they say something that makes you cringe, drink.
You're gonna be so obliterated.
Have water at the ready.
Smash.
We are not responsible for your drinking game that you come up with.
You probably wouldn't make it even halfway through the beginning. You probably make it quarter of the way. What part are we on?
We're only 10 minutes in this? God. Oh, man. On that note, I think we're all in agreement that this just does not help the original at all. They should have went with the book. And on the final nail in the coffin is, if you wanted to check it out, then just check it out on Disney Plus, because eventually it will come out on physical format anyway.
Maybe. I don't know. They've been super stingy, so we'll see.
Well, it is Disney, so I guess we'll see.
Yeah.
On that note, I guess if you haven't heard the episode that we did with Richard last time, which was with the Legend of Sleepy Hollow, we're talking in 1949. Go check that out. That was Richard's first appearance, and now here he is again to talk trash with us about Hocus Pocus. Anyway, Tristan has been a dear friend of ours for a while. He's also had been the one behind Monsters and Legends, which we haven't done in a while, so I know Tristan has been talking about bringing that back. And Justin, you're just a crazy fanatic that wants to talk anything, even if it's a dumb shark movie.
Hold on a minute. I gotta point out one more thing.
Uh-oh.
Winifred said heavens to Murgatroyd in the movie.
I didn't know this was a Transformers movie.
I cracked up when she said that. I'm like, oh my god, she did not just say that.
It's a crossover. Sorry I screwed up your name, Dustin, by the way. I apologize.
That's okay.
Next we're going to get Transformers that look like the Sanderson sisters.
I'm surprised she didn't chime in and say, by the power of Grayskull. I was waiting for that.
Actually, it would have made it a better movie.
Probably would have. On that note, Justin's ready to talk about anything that is stupidly cheesy and fun, because, like you said, he loves the stupidity. And if you have shark movies, give it to him. Like, what was it called? Like Jaws, Santa Jaws, and then there's like Dracula Jaws or some shit like that.
Sand sharks.
And then there's.
I like these movies, by the way.
I bet you do.
I'm sure you do.
Deep Blue Sea 2.
Now that's a good movie.
Very
The Shallows.
Meanwhile, I laugh at stupid shit like Zombievers.
Yeah, Zombievers was quite interesting, wasn't it? And then there's such thing as Rubber, which is a killer hire.
That's such a terrible movie. And Teeth. Don't forget Teeth.
We cannot.
There's killer. Yep. There's Teeth. There's Killer Donuts. There's fucking Couch. Fucking,
Killer
there's
Sofa.
A lot.
Killer Jeans.
Yep. Killer Sofa. Yep. Fucking.
Yeah, and then there's
a lot
Jeans.
of stupid shit out there, but it's fucking hilarious.
If you like stupid shit, and I know this is really taking us away from the ending, watch the KFC mini movie. It was a Lifetime KFC 15-minute movie with
John
every
Stamos in that.
Oh, it was so bad. You saw it, yes. John, it was so terrible. No, it wasn't John Stamos. It was Mario Lopez.
Mario Lopez, yeah.
Yeah, he dyed his hair white. It was so
All right.
awful.
All
Anyway.
right, let's end the recording and then we can yammer on after the recording.
Anyway, on that note, I was Paul Doski.
I was Tessa Baker.
And I was Tristan Knott.
I'm Dustin
From
Walker.
Rutland, Vermont.
Richard Johnson. Dick.
I wonder if anybody's going to catch on to that, what Tessa just said.
Listen, we're not going to talk about it, all right? That gives me PTSD, all right? It makes me go into paranoia.
Oh, no.
We're still here.
Oh, shit. That was hilarious. Anyway, check it out. Richard is also part of a podcast called The Quip Critics. Check them out. Info is in the description below of this episode. And we will have, hopefully, everybody back when we can hopefully all agree on a title and everybody will be back and happy. On that note, before I yabber on anymore, take it easy. Don't let the bed bugs bite. And make sure that you're not watching a superhero movie because that's apparently what Tristan wants in this movie with Hocus Pocus. It's a Tristan.
Listen, I'm a Marvel fan. What do you expect? Don't pick on me.
And on that note, I want everybody else to keep it scary.